again, this is the LG Movers and Shapers series. And as I was saying before I cut out, we will be giving away a free 5G LG Velvet at the end of our conversation if you answer a question on Canadian basketball trivia. So, without further ado, I'm joined by Keon Davis, who is the subject, one of the three subjects of the feature version of True North. Keon is I don't know with COVID, but I believe high school's over now, so just recently graduated high school student who played basketball and is kind of navigating life as a young man. So welcome, Keon.
Thank you, Ryan. How are you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. How are you, man? Good to see you.
I'm not bad. I'm not bad.
So I guess this is kind of cool to reflect on the project, a couple years later. And I guess when we first met, what was your impression of the idea of the film, to document, the life inside Toronto basketball now that it's such a talent hotbed for the NBA? So what was kind of like your first impression when we met?
So first impression, I was about maybe 14 years old when we met, maybe 15. I was just excited to be on camera, honestly. I didn't understand the actual gratitude of the film, but going through it definitely opened my eyes to what's going on around me. Like when I was in it, I wasn't really seeing the rise of Canadian basketball, but definitely now that I've taken a step back and I can look on it a couple years later, it was definitely huge, and it was great to be a part of the film.
I know what's really interesting is that, like, especially with the cottage industry of youth basketball, like there's so many mini documentaries, there's so much video content surrounding that, and I know you watch a lot of that on Ball is Life and thing like that. So when you then were in the process of like, this is happening to me now, was it what you expected, or was it different, or how's this the production?
I didn't really look at it like it was like it uh-oh, got a little shortage. So I didn't really look at it like it was one of those films. I kind of just took the time to kind of tell my story in a way. Just through the lens of my eyes coming up in Toronto, seeing the basketball grow day by day and year by year, I could definitely tell that it was growing. It wasn't really a challenge for me to be on camera or anything like that. I feel like you made it pretty easy for me to piece together my words and look good on camera. So I don't think it was that hard for me.
I promise the film is better than the shaky start to this IG level. And so what was the best part of the filming process, and what was the worst part?
The worst part, always having the mics on me. I hated that, having the mics on my back all the time, taped up to me under my shirts. But the best part about it, just getting to share my story with everyone else. I mean, single mother, 4 kids, 1 house, just stuff like that you don't see every day. And definitely being with my teammates on camera, showing the leadership, showing all the qualities that you need to play basketball, definitely showing that on camera. That was definitely my most fun part of the film, for sure.
Okay, wow, we're back, Keon.
Let's hope we don't fall apart this time.
Okay. All right, so welcome back to the LG Movers and Shapers with Ryan Sidhoo, director of True North, and subject Keon Davis. I think this is a bit better, Keon. I think we might be in business here.
Yeah, I think this one's a little better.
Yeah, okay. Oh man, I feel now it just makes me feel like I'm like some old guy who doesn't know technology. This is bad. So I think we're at the point of what I saw about youth basketball was far different than when I was playing. But it's such a business now because people are really trying to identify, the next LeBron, the next Zion, and create that brand loyalty at such a young age. These shoe companies.
Most definitely.
And I guess what that's done is that it's kind of indirectly made a real wild west landscape with youth basketball, because adults, you know, coaches, people running programs. They want the kid who's now become the commodity and object because that kid could get the money
Yep.
from the finite amount of dollars from the big shoe companies. And for me, it kind of complicated my relationship with the sport of basketball. But you know, as someone who was in it, you were in that world. What was that like in the moment, and then now to reflect on it, kind of how do you process all that?
Um, well, it was a little bit frustrating, being in it, um, especially being one of those guys who wasn't super high profile but had the skill to play. You know what I mean? And it's just frustrating going through the politics of basketball with anyone. That can mean anybody, and anybody and everybody that plays basketball goes through the politics of basketball, and they know what I mean. So just it's all about hard work and just trying to keep your head on your shoulders, trying to put your head down and be a workhorse, work through all the politics, and don't worry about what anybody says, really.
Right. But the thing is, it's not all hard work, is what I came to realize a little bit. Like, I'll take the story of you, for example. Like, you're not 6'8", but you're
Right.
incredibly talented. You have a heart of gold and you have an amazing work ethic. But because, you know, you're maybe quote unquote less marketable in the eyes of coaches to get that quick buck, you know, you kind of, you know, players who are maybe smaller could get like put to the side, you
Yeah.
know, because they're not the thoroughbred that everyone's quote unquote looking for. And the thing that really bothers me about that is that, you know, you know, maybe smaller athletes, like we're still talking about young kids,
Yeah.
human beings with heart and soul. And the, you know, kids like yourself, I saw it with my own two eyes. Like sometimes children still are not being treated as children. They're just being treated as commodities. I mean, like, did you feel that in any way?
Um, I mean, when you're in it, you feel that, of course, but at the same time, these people that you're playing with and that you're on the team with are your brothers at the same time. So you always want to see your brother do well, no doubt. But yeah, it was frustrating, knowing how hard I work and knowing how good that I really am on the inside. And you know, no coach really wants to see you prove that. In a sense, they want what they want in the big name, and what will get them the recognition that they think they deserve, although they are the coach. You know what I mean? So I just feel like in that predicament, all you could do is work and just hope for the best, pray for the best. But it was definitely tough and it was frustrating dealing with that, most definitely.
Well, I think like as we were kind of going through the film and
Hmm.
you and I were having these conversations and talking and we talk about it in the film, and I think a major thesis of the film, which you could watch on Hot Docs for free till September 4th. The major thesis of the film was this idea of making it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil too much about the film. You kind of have these words at the end that you know, really hit home. But you know, I think the big problem is, at least for me, is the idea of making it. Let's say in Toronto, especially, because it seems that everyone has made it or making it because
Yeah.
you know, like Corey Joseph just grew up down the block, Andrew, like everyone's so tangible and
Yep.
touchable because they're from the
Yeah.
area, and like making it means like, well, if you don't, it's like you got to make it to the NBA. But I
Yep.
think if we broaden that definition of, okay, you could, you know, work in the front office, you could be a GM, like you could do so many things related to the industry of basketball and still make it to the league, but you don't necessarily have to be playing.
Yep.
But you know, you kind of spoke about that, but can you just share your thoughts on that a little bit now?
Um, my idea on that is you can't be shallow-minded when it comes to opportunities, in the sense. Like for example, some people, like I went to Vaughn Secondary. For many people that don't know, Andrew Wiggins went to Vaughn Secondary. Um, so shallow-minded people will be like, well, if Andrew Wiggins could make it out of Vaughn Secondary to the NBA, why couldn't you do that? You know what I mean? And I feel like that's just a little bit of a shallow way to look at it. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities within any space that you're looking for. Um, but making it has is an infinite word. I mean, you can't really put a definition on that, because making it could mean, okay, well, I played basketball. Let's say I became a lawyer now. Even though that basketball was my dream job, does that mean that I didn't make it? No, that just means I made it in another area. You know what I mean? So I think that you just got to be open to opportunities, any opportunities, and you can't ever rule anything out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I mean, we talked about this too. I mean, I felt like, I've made it in basketball in a sense because I got to make a film that I've wanted to make my whole life. I was able to, pay rent from getting compensated to make this film. I was getting, to spend infinite amount of hours in basketball gyms. I got to talk
Yep.
to some of my heroes in the film, meet people like you, meet local legends in Toronto. I got to talk to Phil Dixon and
Yep.
David Joseph and all these kind of like legends that I've heard about. Like, so for me, I was so happy, and that all came through a totally different hustle, um, that wasn't playing, but I still got to, experience, a lot of the things I dreamed about just, through a different method.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Now,
sure.
like,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
no, finish your thought.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, who would have ever thought that, that kid from BC that thought his basketball playing career was over would ever get to meet someone like Damon Stoudemire or Steve Nash? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was special. It was so cool also at the premiere having Damon Stoudemire introduce the film,
Yep.
which was like a real full circle thing for me because I'd watched him growing up.
Yep.
Um, just to pivot a little bit, 2020 has been a really trying, challenging year. And for me, it kind of like started with the passing of Kobe, which was, that was my hero growing up, and
Yep.
that was kind of the start of it. And then we obviously have this pandemic, and there was a lot of horrible things that happened, kind of headlined by the George Floyd killing.
Yep.
So what I wanted to ask you, because what's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, there's a lot of good coming from it. And I say that because people now are at least paying attention to a lot of issues, even in the world of sport. And I think people are feeling empowered to speak up. And what I wanted to ask you about is, um, what do you make of the NCAA college, student athlete landscape, where, you have these massive universities who are, for lack of a better term, exploiting athletes to make millions of dollars, and these athletes aren't allowed to make any money. And now, you're having people have been speaking up about this for years, but now I think it's kind of like reaching a boiling point. But, as a young man and potential student athlete yourself at the next level, where do you stand on this?
I think it's a little bit unfair go back to your point to the coaches that do want the marketable athletes. What are you going to offer to the marketable athlete to make him want to play for you? You know what I mean? And I think the NCAA has been doing a terrible job. Let me go off by saying that. But they're making a turn now with people being able to make money off their own likeness and stuff like that. So they did make a little turn with that. But in terms of the NCAA, their rules were a little bit outdated for a while. For example, someone like Zion Williamson who comes into Duke and makes you about 120 million a year, maybe like 50 million just on jersey sales alone. I mean, it's pretty unfair to a teenager that all you do is give him a twin bed and 3 meals a day and expect him to be okay with that when he's making $50 million for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then sometimes when these players maybe they take money on the side, it's like a negative thing, or they get
Yeah.
slammed in the media, which is so unfair. But that's the way like the system is set up. Whereas like
Yep.
we're allowed to make, I think NCAA basketball is like $1 billion industry, so we're allowed to make
Yep.
billions off you. But if you take $50,000 or you take a free meal from this person, like you're gonna face suspensions, or your name's gonna be taken out of our record books. Like it just
Yep.
doesn't add up.
Yep.
So I hope this moment that we're going through right now leads to, positive change. I mean, I think it's the
Yep.
only way the only way like to think about it. It's all you can do is hopefully, hope for positive outcomes. But as a young man, how are you making sense of what's going on in the world today?
Are you speaking of just in general or just in terms with the Black Lives Matter moment that you touched on there?
Well, I think it's just like there's so many things going on, right?
Yeah.
Like all of it. Like obviously there's the pandemic,
Um,
there's the social justice issues.
it's a crazy time right now. the whole pandemic just blew everything out the water. Like, who would have ever thought that the NBA would stop for something other than a financial, like the owner's financial greed? Like the lockouts before were like the 99 lockout and stuff like that. That was all financial business. This was world health, like, you know what I mean? So no one ever thought that that would happen. So it was kind of just crazy. Um, with the whole social justice movement, I think that it's pretty good. Just speaking on how long it's been with systemic racism and things like that. I think that it's really good that the moment is not being wasted here, and that people are really speaking and showing their opinions and stuff like that.
Do you think that the NBA, do you agree with the players? Like some players were split on going into the bubble because they said, you know what, this is a distraction from
Hmm.
what's going on. And other players said, hey, well, we could use this moment to, keep fighting, keep, amplifying the message. Like, how did you feel about that whole debate?
Um, I honestly, I honestly didn't mind them going to play, because that is their job and that is what they get paid millions to do. But I did feel a certain amount of respect from players like Kyrie Irving and stuff like that that had respect for the minorities and didn't just forget about the people that don't make millions of dollars every day. You know what I mean? Like Kyrie Irving had a quote where he said, "I will lose everything that I have for the better of our people." You know what I mean? And that one really hit home because a lot of these NBA players, they forget the problems that minorities go through on a daily basis. You know what I mean? And I just think that it wasn't a bad idea for them to go and play, but I think that it would have had a bigger impact if they didn't play, because then it would have been like, oh well, everyone's looking forward to sports, NFL, you name the sport, NFL, NHL, NBA, anything that is on, anybody's watching. You know what I mean? So I think that it would have been a greater impact for them to not play, but at the same time, it is their job and they are under contract, so it was understandable.
Yeah, yeah, it was a very complicated situation. I don't think there was a perfect solution, but I do like that a lot of the players, who've made the decision to go play, they're at least, doing their part to amplify the message and bring attention to
Yep.
it. Um, I mean, I want to ask you one more thing kind of before we get to the end here. Um, So what are you up to? What are you interested in? Is basketball still, something of interest for you? Are you getting exposed to, different elements of life that are piquing your interest? But like, I think a lot of people always want to know, when they watch a film and they fall in love with the characters. And I think, you're one of the, a lot of people's, they really felt your story and your story resonated with them. And people want to know what's Keon up to? How is Keon doing? How's Donna? So give us a little update of where Keon is right now.
Okay, so recently, well, actually, let's take it back. So even in the documentary, I always got headphones in. So anybody that knows me knows I love music. Always listen to music everywhere I go. So I actually just found out, well, not found out, but found a love for just music in general. So I'm starting to learn a little bit about making beats and stuff like that. So I'm looking into making beats because I do have a couple friends that make music. So I am looking into just making beats and being an engineer. But for the most part, my main focus right now is still basketball, but not playing. I found a new interest in, you could say journalism, but more like just basketball analyst, just being a basketball analyst actually.
Like sports broadcasting.
Yeah, sports broadcasting. So I'm trying to go to school right now for sports broadcasting, and hopefully I'll have a future in that.
Yeah, no, that's I think that kind of like circles right back to the point we were talking about this idea of making it,
Yeah.
where um, like the it's funny how no one really tells you that it's like a 0.03 chance to make the NBA. But no one's like, because sadly a lot of these programs don't want to tell you that because they want you to sign up and pay into their program. But I think it's really great that you being a young man having the foresight to see how you can still take your passion for basketball but turn it into something that might have more longevity. And I think one of the cool things about the film, or not cool thing, but just one of the telling things about the film is that, you had a guy like Damon Stoudemire featured
Mm-hmm.
in the film, and he says, I played in the NBA for over a decade, and I was rookie of the year, and I did this, 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 and then he goes, boom, he's like, boom, it's it's over. And even for someone
Yep.
like that who's made, a ton of money in their career, they kind of have that quarter life or midlife crisis of trying to navigate. So
Yep.
I guess I'm just very like proud and happy to hear that you're, um, that you're pivoting, but still meshing it with your passion.
Yep. Well, there was actually a coach was telling me the other day that I knew from when I was a little kid. He was saying to me, because I was actually telling him that I was interested in sports broadcasting, and he said, "Well, you know what? That's good for you, but you know what, Keon? Every basketball player, no matter how big, how fast, how strong, how smart, how good you are, your knees only got a certain amount of jumps and miles on it. You know what I mean? So at some point in time, it's gonna have to come to an end."
Now, let me ask you this, because this just brought up something else that's interesting. Do you, like, when earlier I said I have a bit of a complicated relationship with basketball, what I meant was I have a complicated relationship now with the people at the very top of the industry. So the
Mm-hmm.
league, the shoe companies, because I find that they have very dangerous messaging, especially towards black and brown communities, that your only way of getting ahead is playing. The people at the top, you don't see ads. You see very few ads promoting, be Masai.
Yep.
Like Masai gets a lot of love in Toronto, and the Toronto market does a good job of promoting the story. But I don't see that holistically from the shoe companies or the league. Like, okay, like there's someone crunching numbers for contracts, like, but Nike's
Yep.
not advertising that. There's someone flying the jet so the players could get around, but Nike in the league, they're not advertising that. I mean, do you, kind of taking a step back, do you kind of see how the system is working against young men like yourself?
Most definitely, for sure. I mean, no, they look at black and brown minorities, and they say, okay, well, you can either sing, you can make a song, or you can play sports, and those are your two ways up to the top of the ladder. You know what I mean? And I think they need to start publishing more like ads for being a GM or being an owner. Why can't you be an owner of a basketball team? You know what I mean? Or why can't you be a GM? Or why can't you be an assistant GM or an assistant coach or a massage therapist for the Toronto Raptors? You know what I mean? You could be anything for a basketball team, but all they want you to do is be the athlete. You know what I mean?
Yes, that they could control more,
Yep. Yep.
essentially. And I think that's why, for me, it's just so like painful to see to love something so much. Like I love basketball. I grew up with
Yep.
it. It's in my DNA. And then all of a sudden, I did this project, and I'm like, man, this industry is
It's not
is
the same.
so is so exploitative, and a lot. I mean, sure, that's how a lot of industries are. But I think you know there are alternatives, right? There are alternatives to the formula and structure they have going on now, but they don't seem to care or enact the change. They just keep pumping out like you could be the next Zion. Like who's going to be the next kid that they're going to pump out is Imani Bates. Then all the next
Yep.
generation of kids say, "Hey, I want to be the next," and then there's going to be another kid and another kid, and it's like the
Yep.
cycle keeps going, and it's how do we change it?
Um, I think it has to come from people like LeBron James, that are so influential. I mean, LeBron has probably 40 million plus followers on all of his platforms. So I mean, anything that he says, people are gonna see it or people are gonna speak about it. You know what I mean? So I think it needs to come from people that are at the top of the ladder already, like LeBron James or maybe a Kevin Durant or maybe a Patrick Mahomes, um, a Messi, Ronaldo, people like that need to encourage younger kids to strive for something greater than just being an athlete. Like in my in the True North documentary, we had a scene where I said I just don't want to be a basketball player. I want to be someone to everybody in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? I want to be able to go outside when I'm 30 years old, and everyone will say, "Oh yeah, that's a good person. Keon's a good person." Not just, "Oh yeah, he could dunk the ball really hard, or he could run really fast." You know what I mean? He could run 40 meters in 40 seconds. You know what I mean? Something like that. But I just think that it needs to come from the top of the ladder, because those are the people that we get all the inspiration from. I mean, like you said yourself, Kobe Bryant was your hero. So I'm pretty sure if Kobe Bryant made a little PSA and said, hey, all the kids out there, you don't got to be a basketball player. You could be a lawyer. You could be a doctor. You could be anything that you want to be. I'm pretty sure that you know, you would take that much serious than if your mom or your dad said, hey, I want you to be a lawyer rather than a basketball player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing it. So, I mean, Kobe did an amazing job winning an Oscar, putting out the books.
Yep.
LeBron has a whole platform called More Than an Athlete, which is amazing. But yes, I think when you were saying, you know, it has to come from the top and people at the top, I think it also has to come from, you know, I'll kind of sugarcoat this, but from the old guard who's been controlling things for a while, they kind of need to come out, and you're starting to see that more. And you're starting to see the people who've been in power for a while get that. So, like I said, it's a bit of a dark time, but perhaps a lot of lightness will come from this situation.
I had a question for you, Ryan.
Okay, yeah. Before we wrap up here,
I just wanted to break it down real quick. So when did you make your first, or when did you get your first directing job? Because you did a great job on The True North. That couldn't have been your first time.
Thank you, Keon. To be honest, like, the documentary industry is really all about hustle and all about, you know, there is a very DIY, do-it-yourself spirit to documentary. So I think anyone involved in the field of documentary, they've been directing on their own, whether it's a really horrible 1, 2 minute, 3 minute student film, or, you know, whether it's you know, they get their first break and they're doing something that's like 2 minutes for Vice or something. Like, you know, Vice kind of gave me a start back in the day, and I got to direct a lot of content there and hone my craft. But I just think the nature of filmmaking, you know, you're always kind of directing and doing it yourself, and eventually, if you stick at it, you will, you know, get that break or bigger budget. So, you know, on True North, it was really nice because I could have, you know, an amazing cinematographer in John Price, an amazing editor, Graham Withers, and you know, an amazing producer in the NFB, and, you know, you had all these pieces, right? It's like you're not playing 1-on-5 anymore. Like, you're playing 5-on-5, and you got a deep bench too, and that was a real luxury. Yeah. So thank you for that question. I think at this point we could ask the big trivia question, the big moment, so people could win this LG Velvet 5G. So the question, is everyone ready to type in the comment section? The question is, besides Steve Nash, who is the other Canadian to make an All-Star game?
Ooh.
Don't say it, Keon. People are feeling right now. I see
Steve
some
Nash,
teammates,
man.
Mateus and Levine, is in here.
Mateus. What's going on, Mateus?
Luke got it.
Luke got it. I knew who it was. I knew who it was.
Luke, Jamal McGlure, Eastern Commerce. There, Luke's real happy because Luke directed a film about Eastern. So it's just lucky day.
I was about to say that. Luke's been around the Eastern.
Yeah, just to mention, Luke played in the same AAU program as Keon, an amazing documentary about Eastern Commerce High School that you could watch online or on different platforms, which was
while we're here, shout out to Luke.
Yeah,
Luke has some great films. I've watched Luke's Northern Kings documentary about 1,000 times before I even played for Northern Kings. So shout out to Luke. Luke's a great film director.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Keon, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan.
Round 2 was much better without any technical difficulties. And the next Movers and Shapers Q&A will be on Thursday with Gabe Polsky, who directed a film called In Search of Greatness, which features a lot of you know, athletes and kind of that greatness DNA, and the film focuses in on that. So it's really fantastic. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. And thanks for sticking around and working through the technical difficulties with us.
Take care. Bye bye.